I'm super excited to have Jessica Cross joining us today. And Jessica is a former 9-to-5er and a side hustle pro turned corporate dropout and full-time business coach. She spent 15 years working for Fortune 500 companies, producing marketing events while building her yoga and sound healing business, Sound of Stress. Jessica recently merged her wealth of experience in marketing and her passion for mindfulness to serve as a business coach for wellness business leaders. She's especially passionate about supporting yoga teachers and energy workers in sustainably leveling up their business. And you can find more about her at jessicacross.co and the same letters at jessicacross.co on Instagram. So welcome, Jessica. First of all, I want to say thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to be here and share your story with us. And as you say, let's dive in.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I'm just so grateful to have been asked, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, same here, and what really resonated with me is your mission right now, right? When you're talking about having the passion, right, about wellness and you having a wellness business yourself, right, on the side while you had a corporate job. And now kind of having that clarity and merging your corporate career in marketing and what you've learned and what you developed expertise in, and merging that with the other side, that passion, and now growing it into a business, into something of your own. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about yourself and kind of how it all came together and the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. Gosh, it's a long story, and I'll save you some of the boring parts. But
I bet it is.
When I was in college, I started in mass communications as my degree, and kind of found myself in the PR and advertising side of things. And I always thought I wanted a corporate job. I really thought I wanted to sit at a desk, and that was going to be the be all end all for me. And happily ever after.
So that was kind of like your vision?
I truly did. And I think it's because, when we're in the college age range, you're this 18 to 21, 22, you're being asked to figure out what you want to do with your life with, only a few, depending on who you are anyway, maybe only a few models of what your life could be like. And, my dad was a teacher. My mom, worked a few desk jobs when I was growing up, and I knew I didn't want to do like what they did, but I knew I wanted to be able to create something for somebody else and work in a corporate environment. So I got my dream 100% because right out of college, I found myself working in events and very junior role, but getting to work on massive productions, things like working for the first big job I had was working for a beer distributor, a beer producer, Anheuser-Busch, and I got to travel all over the country. I'm from a small town, and I hadn't traveled all that much. I had a very thick Texas accent when I got started, and I kind of got thrown in. I met a ton of people. I got put into positions where I had to figure things out and problem solve in a short notice. And I got to see big crowds, big glamorous events, and, thinking how it was, I was like, gosh, I always thought it was so glamorous, but just feeling the sweat roll down my back after hauling case after case after case to backstage, and seeing celebrities walk by and how they're just normal people, and just kind of getting that whole education and this whole other lifestyle that was kind of beyond what I could expect. And
it must have been surreal, right? That imagination, or how you thought it was, or and then seeing the behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. And any event or marketing person is going to tell you it ain't glamorous, friends. Like, it is hard work and late nights and, sweat and pressure. And, I really loved it for a long time. And I feel like I learned it so much from
Mm-hmm.
that experience. It tested me and challenged me in ways that I never would have even dreamt. And I'm just
Yeah.
so thankful for that. And, I moved around the country a lot with different jobs, and also with my partner, with my boyfriend at the time, became my fiance and eventually my husband.
Mm-hmm.
We were college sweethearts, and we were kind of doing this whole thing at the same time. He was doing his in learning his side of the things, which is the advertising world, and moving up to a creative director, and I'm moving up in the marketing and events world throughout these different moves and corporate jobs that we took. And at one point, I started to ask if there was more than this. And it's so funny, because something I often talk about, if you follow me on Instagram, or if you're a client of mine, it's like we often move the goalpost. And
Yeah.
I've moved the goalpost in my life a lot. And I was looking around, making good money. All of my needs are met. I had a bigger career and job than anybody in my family by a
Mm-hmm.
long shot. And, I started questioning things as to, like, what the heck am I doing with my life? Like, is this the be all end all? Because there's this lovely side of marketing where it's real shiny and it feels super good, and you're communicating your products, and then you start to realize that there's not a ton under the surface
Okay.
in some of these roles. It's all about that quick win, that experience that's come and gone in a few hours that you work for 6 months to
Right.
produce. And so I started to realize, I was like, man, I just am feeling like I'm missing something.
So is that what prompted it? Kind of like that, getting to a point where it starts to feel like more surface level, you're busy, right? You're on the go, 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 living this like from a side, amazing lifestyle that you dreamt of, right? You reached your vision, but then something inside of you is kind of like that voice is
Yeah.
coming up, that something's missing. Kind of what do you think prompted that? Those questions are kind of that, yeah, that question.
Yeah. I think you're making a lot of decisions when you're, before the age of 25. You're making a
Mhm.
ton of decisions before your brain is fully formed as a human. Like,
That's a good point.
you're being asked to make huge decisions, and I made some big ones. The first job I mentioned, I picked up and moved across country without a job. I just knew I was going to get it. I was just sure of it. And so I just picked up everything, left everybody and everyone and everything that I knew, and moved to a giant city where I knew nobody. And I was just sure of it. So this same voice is talking to me as I have, made this progress in my career and got where I thought I wanted. And I think this voice was me deep down, this like original me who is
Mhm.
kind of introverted and a bit of a nerd, and
Mhm.
not all that glamorous. And she's kind of like, hi, do you remember me?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Hi.
yeah.
So
Oh,
I
what did you say to the voice? Yeah.
yeah, so I just started listening. And I started working so much. Yeah, I was very active as a kid and throughout college. I kind of got away from that in this career,
Mhm.
because I was traveling so much, late nights, terrible food, all the things that you do just to kind of get through.
Right.
And started getting back into like a physical practice. And I'm a yoga teacher now. I had no idea what yoga was growing up, small town.
Yeah.
That's not common.
Yeah.
And I, started moving more, started exploring, running and different practices. And then I kind of fell into yoga. Literally at the corporate gym, there was a yoga class. And
Ironic.
I was like, what is this? this is, but hey, it's part of my membership. Let me go try it. And in that class, I had a moment where I said, this voice is like, this is going to be something for you.
Wow.
And that was it. That was like the one class I took. I was like a little afraid. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And,
Mm-hmm.
back to work, back to what's comfortable. And I can, I mean, as much as you can in a job like that. But, I knew, Monday through Friday, sometimes Monday through Sunday, what to expect. And this little voice where it's like, you should pay attention to this. And
Mm-hmm.
I started practicing more and started kind of putting myself into these different communities as we were moving around the country. And I, when I landed, I'm in Austin, and when I landed in Austin and in my most recent corporate career, I started practicing a ton of yoga to balance the stress and feel home in my body. And it was that's when that voice was like, do you remember what I told you 5 years ago? Okay, like you should listen, like, let's do this.
Yeah. But we have a tendency, that's what I was going to ask you, like, when did you find yoga? Was it about 5 years ago?
I started practicing in 2008. So that was, that's
longer.
Yeah, longer.
Yeah.
Math. But yeah, like 13 years-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
Years-ish. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I it obviously has changed my life. And I started practicing every day. I was going as many times I would go before and after work, and as just much as I could. I just wanted that. I think I wanted to be home in my own
feeling.
body. Yeah. And yoga was helping me get to that place. And I just decided, I want more. I want to immerse myself in this culture. I don't know if I want to teach, but I want to take a training. And so I did a bunch of research, as one does, and landed in a yoga teacher training in 2015. And yeah, and that whole process just opened me up even more to a whole new world that I had no idea how deep the roots of that practice, how deep they run. And it was just transformative, and it opened me up to this today. That was a very, very much a part of that training. That very first training that I took was very much a part of what led me over the next several years to this very moment.
So it sounds to me like yoga was really that practice, because you're busy, right? Leading this amazing lifestyle, right? Everything or many things that you dreamed of or imagined, right? In college or whenever it started for you, right? And here you have it, right? And you're seeing the behind the scenes, and it's kind of this wheel, right? But it sounds like yoga was a practice to come home to you, like that was the medium.
Yeah, exactly. That was the fastest way right back to center, is just every time I would step on my mat. And like you said, the corporate job, the corporate cycle had just become this wheel that I was upon, and it never seemed to have an end. And I think it does. I don't know that it does. I'm sure there are ends in those instances, but yoga was just the moment I could stop time and just be with myself. Yeah.
And in ways you kind of like force yourself, because like sometimes we know, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, when you had that experience, right? And that voice popped up, right? And you found a class, at your actually work gym or building gym. And did you right away start practicing, or was it kind of on and off? Like, how much did you listen to it? Because, sometimes we get that voice and we're like, oh, no, I know it's good for me, but then let me be distracted still for a little while.
Yeah. And you nailed it. So that first class afterward, I was like, okay. All right. Yeah, I see this. This is good, but I'm not ready, if that makes sense. Like I kind of put the blinders up a little bit, and I would go occasionally, but not like every time I went. I remember like feeling that call. There's like this, like
Mm.
you're like that voice. I said, this is going to be something for you. And this is
Wow.
exactly what that voice said. And I would dip my toe in and then come back out, and I would dip my toe in, I'll come back
Mm.
out.
Okay. And then
At first, yeah.
when did you start? So it's kind of like you feel it, but you resist it at the same time, right? You kind of
Yeah.
like that no one kicks in, but almost do you think it's that we are scared? Or we kind of like our ego kicks in and then says, well, I don't really see the connection, right? How I can possibly merge these two, right? Or make the same living, somehow, integrating this mad thing.
Yeah. And it's totally like, I think I wasn't ready.
Mhm.
I don't think I was ready for that. And I'm actually glad.
Mhm.
I'm because all of the experiences that I had, beyond that moment in 2008
Mhm.
made me who I am today. And if
Yeah.
I would have just said like, oh, I'm just gonna quit my job after taking one yoga class and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty pragmatic in that way, for good or bad. I honestly, in 2008, I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even know like what a yoga teacher did. I
Right,
had no idea.
right.
And I was just like, okay, like, noted. I hear you, universe. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go back over here. I'm gonna go back to my desk.
That's what I know, right? I'm comfortable. My
Yeah.
ego says it's like this is known.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So now, when did you start? It sounds like you started on your own, kind of when the voice started kicking in your day job, right? That there's some kind of ache or something, some underlying low level feeling of missing something. So what steps did you start taking? It sounds like you started building your own business, kind of playing around to answer that call.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So around the 2015, 2016 mark, I'm taking this training. I'm asking myself questions. Do I want to teach? Is
Mhm.
this, do I, and that became clear. Yes, I do.
Okay.
And, finished that training, and right out the gate, I just started teaching everywhere I could, just as much
Wow.
as I could, as many times as I could, on top of my full-time plus hours,
Wow.
and was just trying it. I'm like, dude, is this, and it felt so good to teach. It's a whole practice on its own as a teacher. And I was like leaning into that and feeling like I was making an impact in people's day and ultimately their lives in
Mhm.
ways that I couldn't in, my regular job, my day job. And I started I'm like, I don't, unfortunately, friends, if you're listening, yoga teacher friends, you probably know this, or if you're interested in the teacher training, you're going to learn that teaching public drop-in classes is not sustainable, and it is generally not well paid. So,
Okay.
it's a low, for the most part, for many teachers, a low like pay rate. And
Is that
especially
what
when you're
you
new.
did? Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Especially when you're new. And, I'm like, what anybody would pay me, and be like, great, that's great. You're paying me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But it maybe
And
might have been like a ground for you, right? Because I mean, how admirable is that you not only, because I think many people, okay, they will take the training class, but you like dove in. You like after that, you're like, I'm gonna teach, I'm gonna try it out. So it's a great training ground, right? For you to actually see if that energizes you as you imagined,
yeah.
or no, how is it in
Yeah,
practice?
it did in a lot of ways for a short period of time,
Okay.
and because it's a hustle. It is,
Yeah.
if you're going to be teaching a bunch of classes, you're going to be going back and forth to the studio, early, late. You might
Okay.
have multiple studios that are spread out because they're in each community, and you don't want yoga
Yeah.
studios on top of each other.
Yeah.
So you're driving. So you add, and sometimes at one point when I was teaching, I would have an hour on the front and back, like an
Wow.
hour commute and back, depending on what time of day it was, just because I loved that community, and I still do. And it did energize me for a while, but at the same time, it taught me a very important lesson that
Okay.
I'm teaching my clients right now, is like, that's not a sustainable way to teach for most people.
Yeah. No.
There are other ways to
Yeah.
build your business. Yeah.
And how, I'm just wondering, how did you do it on top of a full-time job?
Oh, it was messy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really messy. Yeah, it was, packing my bag in the morning or the night before and setting it by the door so I could run out and go teach. And
Mhm.
then I would shower at work sometimes and then work my day job.
Mhm.
And if I had something after, it'd be the same thing. I'd be bringing I'd have to time out my meals, which if you're a teacher, you're laughing so hard right now because we all have to do this, but you like time out your meals. So it's like, I want to eat because I'm not getting home till 9 tonight,
Right,
but
right.
it's too early, like you make yourself sick if you take on too much food. So before you're active. So it's, it was really hard and I'd come out really exhausted and it started to build like this exhaustion,
Mhm.
almost kind of builds into this like resentment because you're like, I don't get to practice. I don't have
Yeah.
any downtime now.
Yeah, you're on the go.
You're on the go. Exactly. Exactly. So it was hard and I burned out. I burned out.
So I'm just thinking, okay, if somebody, right, is in, if I rewind, right, in your position, right, where they have a corporate job, like 9 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever,
Yeah.
but they're busy, they're successful, right? There's always projects, things to do, right? Next, but they have the same question, the sense of dissatisfaction, this feeling of something missing, some void. And what would you say would be, how is it, what's your advice for people to connect with the outlet? Like you somehow got connected to yoga, right? Uh, Anything that you can recommend how people can find like what will feel, kind of start taking steps to kind of addressing that void, following that voice?
Yes, and that's such a great question, and it's so important. I think if you're listening and you're feeling that you've kind of become incredibly successful in the niche and or the type of job that you're working in, and you're kind of asking yourself, what next? I would, as you said, start something, start taking some steps, go immerse yourself in another community, go experience something that you would never typically do, have conversations with people whom you don't know, ask for, introductions to somebody who has a job that sounds kind of interesting to you,
Mhm.
or just start trying some things, start talking to people
Mhm.
because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You gotta like put yourself out there and try some stuff because the yoga experience for me is for a lot of people, but it's not for everybody.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
You got to figure out what's for you and don't ignore that little inkling of wanting more because
I
it will
think
come
that's the
back.
key. Yeah. Listen, right? Don't try
Mhm.
to stuff it down.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then when you talk about like talk to people, so how do you know who to talk to? Like what door to open, right? Do you talk to people in the company, like maybe in the leadership of the function? Like you were in marketing, would you talk to, whatever, the head of marketing, some of the VPs, however big the organization is? Or do you recommend like following more an outside activity, something that lights you up that you do on nights and weekends?
Yeah, I mean I think all of those things could work. If you're working in a corporate setting and you're interested, let's say you're interested in a different job function, like if you work
Mhm.
in marketing, but maybe
Mhm.
you really want to be an event producer.
Yeah.
And if there's somebody in your company who's an event producer, send them a Slack and say, yo, like, can I buy you coffee and just talk for 20 minutes? Because I'm so curious about what you do.
Yeah.
And most people are like, absolutely. Well, first of all, yes, you can buy me coffee. And then
Right,
like
right,
people
right.
like to talk about themselves. So
Yeah.
anytime I've ever had that conversation with anybody like in the corporate world or, outside in
Okay.
yoga, everyone says yes,
Yeah.
always. So
Yeah.
just start by saying, could I buy you coffee? And just, I want to hear what you think about this industry, or, what's your typical day like when you're doing this type of job?
Yeah, no, I love that. And then when you found that, so it's kind of like the Shakira song, try everything, if you're not sure, because like there are many people who don't know, right? The whole purpose conversation, and kind of, you have this burning desire inside of you, like you feel that you could be doing more, contributing more, but you don't quite know, is it like do I have to go look for another job, or can I make my current job my dream job? Do I need to leave profession, change industries, or, change it all, and start my own business? If you're completely like, right, your mind goes all those directions, but you don't really have a clear answer which one is the right thing. So it's kind of like you're saying to try everything or anything.
Try something, because that's the only way you're really going to know if it's for you or for not for you. These conversations are a great way to start, because it might just help you decide, like, let me try that thing first, and then see. Throughout my whole journey and coming into my business coaching for wellnesspreneurs, before that, I have had a ton of businesses on the side. It's in addition to teaching yoga, I had a jewelry brand and a spiritual apparel brand. I also have my sound healing brand. Like, I have tried a lot of stuff. I nearly opened a yoga studio.
You're amazing.
Well, and it was all an education in the things that I didn't want, if that makes sense. And I wouldn't have known I didn't want them if I hadn't gone down that path.
Right. Because then if you don't try it, then the idea remains an idea and a dream and a possibility. And 10 years down the road, you're still thinking, what if I tried it? You really won't know.
You won't. Yeah. And it's so much easier to say, hey, I tried it and it didn't work out, than like, oh, I wonder if.
Yeah.
So it's all about trying stuff 100%. And then being easy with yourself if it doesn't work out, because it's just information. It's not a failure.
Yeah, no, I love that. And how does it feel to know, right? Once you tried it, how does it feel to kind of looking back and know that you tried it? Does it take away some of the angst or something? Like, what would you say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, knowing that I kind of put myself out there is, many times has just been such an amazing lesson in not being attached to outcomes. And because if I would have given up on, the first business idea that I had and just said, well, that's it, I'll never have a business. Who knows what would have happened. And I'm kind of glad that I don't know that, if that makes any sense. Like it's if you're going through this process, it does give you some purpose when you're like feeling like, okay, the day job's not fulfilling me right now, but I am figuring stuff out with this other thing. And that feels pretty good. Even if that other thing doesn't pan out 100% for you, it's gonna feel good because you tried.
It makes me, like, yesterday I was walking with my sweetheart. We were going for a walk and I had this question come up, like, do we have too high of an expectation of a job? One job that all of a sudden this career has to fulfill all of our needs, has to be a purpose that lights you up, that speaks to your soul, that provides you opportunities for growth. I'm thinking like, I always relate a job or a career, business, whatever you call it, whatever it is for you, right, to a relationship. And like, can you source all of that from one person? That would not be very smart. That's like bound to fail. What do you think about that? Like, how do you view that?
Oh, I 100% in your camp on that. It's, it's interesting kind of, the corporate lifestyle that I've been, especially in my last job, it was a tech company, and it's very centered around the employee experience. And, there was just so much internal marketing around all of the amazing like benefits and fun things and swag and just all the stuff you get, quote unquote stuff, that you get. And it was interesting being in the role that I was in, in events, and part of my function was doing internal events for employees, and our employees, the employees for the company, for which I used to work, almost like became so jaded because they expected so much from the company. And the company, the company set it up that way. They want you to say, well, it's like this whole like lifestyle versus like just a job. And there, I think is now, people have, since the pandemic, people are questioning, just like I did, their whole entire lives. And they're questioning like how much time they're spending at work and the value of all of those extra things, that stuff that you get. Because it's like you said, it's like our jobs are this whole like great places to work culture that is around us. It is implying that it does serve every single need that you have, almost like, we will take care of you completely, including your entertainment. We got you. And I think it's unfair. I don't think the business should have to carry that identity, is like, we're going to take care of the whole person. And also I think it sets people up to be disappointed, because it's just not how it's supposed to be, in my opinion. We're supposed to have like our own lives. We're supposed to have other parts of our lives and have the time to enjoy those parts of our lives with friends, with family, with other people in business and peers. And it shouldn't be so all-encompassing, I guess, in my mind.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. And thank you for sharing that perspective. So it's kind of like, it's our own, we need to empower ourselves to kind of have fully integrated, full lives, and fully lived in different areas of your life, right? That come into play. I was wondering, when you were doing, right, you have your main job, your corporate job, and then you're pursuing, right, these passions, this kind of voice, right, this kind of where it's the interest is leading you down. And how did it feel like, if you compared your feeling in your 9 to 5 versus then teaching yoga or whatever business you were pursuing at the time? Was one energizing versus the other, or what was the internal experience for you?
Yeah, I did definitely pay attention to my own energy when I was exploring those different businesses. Because I mean, obviously, like, the podcast is you create your best career. So like that was my whole, it's like, do I want to do this? Like, how do I feel with this energy exchange? Because that's what business is. And what is lighting me up? And I leaned in pretty hard on a few things, a few different business ideas to find that out. And I'm so glad that I did that practice, basically, from an uncovering of what like lit me up and what didn't. And I found more things that didn't light me up than did.
Like the yoga, right? Like going and teaching, right? In the public setting.
And I love to teach yoga. I love that transformation, but being like the hustle of teaching 20 classes a week to try to make a living is not for me. It might be for some people. I would argue that it's not for long term, but it is for some people. But I learned it's not for me. Another one to add to the list.
How valuable. And so how did it all came together now to the decision just as of a few weeks ago, right? Like, or you probably made the decision a bit earlier that this is it, I'm quitting.
I've had this dream of working for myself in whatever capacity that was going to be for 6 years. And there's been lots of times where I'm like, okay, now this is the time. And no, that's the time. Now is the time. And, it didn't, for whatever reason, well, I mean, I know the reason it didn't pan out those times because it wasn't supposed to. And it wasn't the right time. And those lessons are always those hindsight lessons where it's really clear later. You're like, oh, that's why. That's why you don't open a yoga studio right before the pandemic hits. That's why like you don't open your own events business right before the pandemic hits. Like there's so many reasons where I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I see now. And I thought, at the beginning of the year, I had, or the end of 2020 was transformative for many people in not so good ways and good ways too. I had, my father passed at the end of 2020, and it was as everything it is when you lose a parent. And it was also eye-opening. It's like, I can't play small anymore. This is done. And now is the time. So, I'm open, like, show me the way. Like, I'm going to put it out there that maybe my sound healing business is my full-time thing, and I'll work on that. And through processes and, mutual programs that we've been in, I kind of uncovered, it's like, it can be that, and it can be my business coaching. And I get to bring both. Like I get to do both. I don't have to just pick one thing. Yeah. So yeah, I plan to leave my job, actually, not this soon.
Okay.
But there was a couple of moments last month that were highly clarifying. I'll just say that it was, what is the difference between now and a few months? Nothing. So again, like, no, we're not playing small. So let's go. And, I saved my pennies. I saved as much as I could. And I, have an existing client base. I'm so glad and fortunate and happy to say that. And I just stopped waiting to be ready. That's done. So here we go.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so
Thanks.
much for sharing that.
Of course.
That really touched my heart. And I'm so sorry about your dad.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And was it something that you heard? Was it the voice of that intuition coming, kind of the getting louder and clearer? Or was it just a combination of things? And I think this is why I want to have conversations like this, right? Because sometimes we need to hear the inspiration and encouragement and the ideas, and that it's possible for somebody else.
Yeah. I took a Monday off, which is unlike what I would normally do. That was Mondays were always crazy in my previous job. And it was like, you just don't take Mondays because you're going to be sorry. And at least that's what I had told myself for however long. Okay. And I took a Monday off, and I went to a place that's near Austin that is like a spiritual wellness center. Spent a whole day, treated myself, very unlike me again. Like, I don't typically do that kind of stuff. And it was something with that day off, because when I came back the next day, I was a different person. I'm not sure, like a switch flipped, and I was feeling it in not only mentally but physically. It's like, no, you're done. Like you got it. You're done. Like, you've got to get out of here. And I just, I took that week, talked to my therapist. I talked my husband's head off.
Yeah.
I called dear friends and people that have been in positions like me before, and they're like, take the weekend and then just think. And I did. And that Saturday, I was like, it was just complete calm. Wow. And I just knew, I was like, okay, Monday, it's time. So, and as soon as I decided, other things like just moved with me. Like, it was like, okay, you're ready. Great.
Wow.
We've been waiting.
On, right? Like, okay, done with the questioning, done with the soliciting the other people's feedback, but sometimes it's a part of the process, right? it's good to have those people, and so valuable to not need to think you need to figure everything out on your own, get that validation. And then, okay, I was just thinking before we were talking, you were a part of the Great Resignation.
I know.
It's like the biggest thing happening right now. Wow.
Yeah.
You're part of history.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can, anytime I read stories like this, I'm like, yep, I get you. Like I hear or listen to podcasts on this, because it's, it's a reckoning. People are not taking the status quo anymore. Like it, and I don't, if you're listening and that's for you and you're thinking the same thing, just think about it long and hard and decide, because there's no better time than now, really.
Wow. So what's now? How do you feel right now, Jessica? It's been a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. It's been a couple of weeks since my last day, and I had a lot of anxiety about leaving, and
I bet
all of those things that I was worried that were going to happen, that, people thought something bad about me as a person for leaving, or that what people would judge my work and none of that happened. None of it. Nope, none of it at all. All of the things I built up in my mind, it was not like that at all. People were so kind. And, my last day, I didn't even hear from HR. There was not even like an exit interview. And I was just like,
really?
Okay, I'm done.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
I probably felt
I know. Kind of, yeah. I had built the end up to be so much, and it just wasn't that way for me. So, I'm glad. And then the end of that week, my husband and I, we did a little celebratory lunch at a place. Now that we can go out and sort of eat safely these days, that was a big deal for us. Yeah. And then I went on vacation. I did like a spontaneous, I know, and again, it's like, I just decided to do that. And it was great because it kind of gave me a natural break in between like the leaving and the newness, the new journey. And, I came back and I have so many amazing, fun things that I get to work on, and I get to make my own schedule, and I get to have conversations like these and help my clients. And it just feels so good.
Oh, so I was going to ask, does it feel different? Do you feel different in your day to day?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I feel lighter. I keep forgetting. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I wonder what meetings I have today. I'm like, oh, my meetings.
That's awesome. I love that. Well,
Thank you.
If you don't mind repeating, like right now, what is your mission right now, your vision, and how can people find you, follow you, work with you? I know you also have a podcast, so share it all.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So my whole vision and mission is to help other yoga teachers, energy workers, meditation teachers market themselves in a way that gets them out of that grind that I was in when I was teaching a ton of classes and trying to figure out a way to support myself. And, I love like diving in on figuring out what your offer is going to be, figuring out your ideal clients, figuring out how to craft your marketing to reach your people and make a living serving. And I get to serve people that serve, which is incredible. Like it just feels so good. I feel like I'm actually making an impact, and it's so much fun. And I'm just, throwing my arms open. If that resonates with you and you're listening, like send me a DM. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to see how I can health. And I'm on Instagram at jessicacross.co. You can find me also at jessicacross.co on the interwebs. And in my podcast, I'm having conversations similar to these, specific for the wellness industry, and like how to level up your marketing, how to quit hustle so you can step in sustainably and, you know, make a living serving your peeps. And it's marketing off the mat. So you can find me over there as well.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I love that because I listened to a couple of episodes yesterday.
Thank you.
And I think even if you are not starting your business yet, I think there will be a lot that you can find from Jessica's journey, from your wisdom, I mean, you're just amazing, like what you've been through, what you've tried, and kind of what you're sharing, like one of the episodes I listened to, I think that will be applicable for anybody, is really how to know when to say yes and when it's a no for you in any given situation. And then branding that builds trust. You know, aren't we branding every day to anybody, whether you're working for a corporate America or not, right? We're doing it in so many interactions and situations. So thank you for being such a star. I mean, I'm amazed with your journey. You're such a brave and courageous soul. So thank you so much. So keep shining bright.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That's just so generous. And I'm just so glad that we got to have this conversation, and I look forward to staying connected. Thank you.
That sounds awesome, Jessica. Definitely.